Montgomery County 911, where's your emergency?
I just killed my two children.
Okay, and what's your name?
Brandy Worley.
Okay, and how old are your children?
7 and 3.
7 and 3?
Mm-hmm.
They were just children, tucked into bed after dinner. By morning, they were murdered by their own mother, while their father was in the house too. What drives a parent to such horror? The story begins with a Reddit post, but maybe there were warning signs long before that, ones everyone missed. Sometimes evil doesn't storm in. It wears a smile. Brandy Worley didn't fit the stereotype of a violent killer. She was a stay-at-home mom who baked cookies and posted happy family photos online. Then, in a single night, she destroyed everything. Darlington, Indiana, a quiet town of just a few hundred people, about 40 miles northwest of Indianapolis. It's the kind of place that seems safe. Brandy and Jason Worley looked like just another Midwestern couple, raising 2 kids in a peaceful neighborhood until the morning that shattered it all. Jason, a software engineer, worked hard to support the family. 31-year-old Brandy was a wonderful, caring mother. On her Facebook profile, she wrote, "In the end, I am the only one that can give my children a happy mother that loves life." Neighbors considered both parents to be good people. They thought Brandy was a great person, a loving mother, and a good friend. Everyone adored the children and said they were sweet. 3-year-old Charlie was already full of personality, a bright little girl with a flair for dressing up. She loved wearing braids and bows in her hair. She attended Wilson Preschool and took dance classes. Charlie was opinionated and stubborn, but also incredibly joyful and loving. The 2 children were inseparable. 7-year-old Tyler brought a smile to everyone and filled all the people around with joy. His father said he could walk into a room with 20 strangers and come out with 20 friends. Tyler was a curious, smart first grader. He wanted to work with computers, just like his dad. He loved sports and was full of energy. Once, Tyler asked his parents to pack more food in his school lunchbox. They agreed. But it wasn't until after Tyler's death that a teacher told Jason something he hadn't known. Tyler ate very little food himself. Instead, he gave it to classmates who didn't have enough to eat. His father later said that in that moment, Tyler taught him more about what it means to be a man that cares about his community than he could have ever taught him. Before we unravel the story, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? I'd love to see how far these stories have reached, and feel free to share your thoughts throughout the video. After Jason and Brandy married in 2009, they soon had their first child. Tyler was born 10 weeks early and spent his first days in an incubator. During that time, the couple made a promise. Their children would always come first, even before each other. But behind closed doors, something was deeply wrong. Their marriage was quietly falling apart, and there was a reason for that, a heartbreaking one. On November 16, 2016, the day before the murders, the family went together to their daughter Charlie's dance program. They laughed, played, and later had dinner as if everything were normal. Jason would later recall that Brandy told him she needed to go to Walmart to buy pipe cleaners for Tyler's art project. While she was gone, Jason and the kids sat on the couch and watched a movie. When Brandy returned, she hadn't brought the pipe cleaners. Jason asked why, and she replied they didn't have any. He found it weird, but didn't give it much thought at the time. In truth, Brandy hadn't intended to buy pipe cleaners. Instead, she came back with a knife, one she would hide inside Tyler's toy bin in his bedroom. Then she joined Jason and the children in the living room and played with them like nothing had happened. That same evening, Jason read the children their bedtime story, just like he did every night. As he tucked them in, he said, "Good night. I love you. I'll see you in the morning." He didn't know he was putting them to bed for the last time. He later said it was a gift to have such a wonderful night with his children before the horror that was about to happen. Jason and Brandy were no longer sharing a bedroom due to the state of their marriage. That night, Jason went downstairs to sleep in the basement, unaware that upstairs, the final hours of his children's lives had already begun, and that by morning, the house would be filled with the sound of sirens. Brandy waited until both children were asleep. Then, she took the knife from her son's toy bin, woke Tyler, and told him he could have a sleepover in his sister's room. There, She knelt on Tyler's chest, held his mouth shut, and stabbed him multiple times. Charlie, just 3 years old, stirred awake and asked what her mother was doing. Brandy replied, "Nothing. Go back to sleep." Charlie fell asleep unaware of the danger. Moments later, Brandy killed her too, and then injured herself with the same knife. It was just after 4:30 a.m. on November 17th when the emergency dispatch line in Montgomery County received a call. A woman's voice came through, calm and almost lifeless.
Hey, what's going on there?
I just stabbed myself and I killed my 2 children.
She told the dispatcher that her children were in her daughter's room on the floor.
What are you feeling right now? I mean, are you...
I took a lot of Benadryl.
Before calling 911, she had phoned her mother, and it was her mother who told her to hang up and call for help. When her mother arrived at the house, she walked upstairs, found the children, and screamed. That scream is what woke Jason. He had no idea what was waiting for him. He ran upstairs and found his mother-in-law hysterical in the kitchen, crying, "My babies," and "I don't know, I just don't know." Jason didn't have his glasses and couldn't see very well. Brandy was sitting on the couch in the living room. He asked her, "What did you do?" She looked at him and said, "Now you can't take my kids from me." Jason was confused. He realized something bad had happened. He just didn't know how bad. When police arrived at the Worley home in the early hours, the scene they walked into was chilling. Upstairs, 2 children lay lifeless, killed by the one person they trusted most. One officer asked Jason about a hunting knife. He replied there were none in the home. Jason was escorted outside. An officer's radio was on, and he overheard from the voice on the police radio that there were 2 deceased children in the house. Hearing those words, Jason collapsed to the ground. He said, "My children were my life. They were my everything." According to the autopsy report, both children were stabbed in the neck multiple times. The combat knife was found at the scene. It was consistent with the injuries found on both children. Jason Worley was left to carry the weight of losing both his children. He was heartbroken and felt he had failed his children. In an interview, Jason said he had no idea what Brandy was capable of. The entire community was shocked. Brandy was known for her upbeat, gregarious, and kind nature. She was well-liked. Neighbors spoke only positively about the family. One neighbor said he looked forward to seeing the children and kept popsicles at his house for them. He recalled helping Tyler and Charlie make a birthday card for their mother, just days before the tragedy. Tyler and Charlie Worley should still be here. They should have grown up, built their dreams, and lived lives full of ordinary joys. Their father said both children had very bright futures. Brandy remained conscious during the initial response. She was rushed to IU Health Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis to be treated for her neck wound. It was not fatal. Worley was formally charged with 2 counts of murder while recovering in the hospital and was placed under arrest. In her first statements to police, Brandy gave a flat, almost mechanical account of what had happened. The sheriff said she seemed matter-of-fact and not remorseful. After her arrest, she was transferred to Montgomery County Jail in Crawfordsville, where she awaited trial. But she would never face a jury. A mother murdering her own children is the most unnatural and horrifying thing in the world. Montgomery County Circuit Court judge later said at the sentencing, "Sometimes there is no explanation. Darkness is in this world, and it penetrates minds and our hearts. But perhaps there were some events in Brandy's life that could give a glimpse of what was happening in her mind. And as in many other cases on my channel True Crime Journals, there were signs." According to court records, Brandy showed little emotion during the interviews. She didn't cry. She didn't seem distressed. She was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and remained emotionless. Her attorney Mark Inman said, "That's the only way she knows how to deal with it at this point." Brandy Worley entered a not guilty plea and was expected to raise it on the grounds of insanity. Her defense team tried to lessen the charges by presenting a psychological evaluation showing her diminished capacity at the time of the crime. They claimed she had a history of mental health struggles, which they argued may have impaired her judgment. According to her attorney, Brandy's emotional numbness is her way of coping. The weight of what she did, and its impact on her mental health, has left her emotionally detached from the horrific events she caused. Brandy had stated the reason for the crime during her 911 call.
And what caused you to do this today?
My husband wanted a divorce and wanted to pick my kid. I won't let him find my kid.
She said she wanted to die with her children. Jason filed for divorce on November 16th, the day before the murders. He cited an irretrievable breakdown of their marriage as the reason. He said Brandy knew why they were divorcing. But what exactly had happened? And why was it irretrievable? And why did Brandy react the way she did? Brandy and Jason met in 2006 when they were both college students in Indianapolis. Brandy was studying to become a paralegal. At first, Jason barely noticed her, but they would often bump into each other, and Brandy would always smile at him. She came across as friendly, bubbly, and energetic. She was fun to be around. A mutual friend told Jason that Brandy liked him, and soon they began dating. Later, Brandy admitted something surprising. She had been deliberately following Jason around campus, and had even memorized his class schedule. Jason had believed their meetings were just coincidences, but as it turned out, they were carefully planned. Looking back, it marked the beginning of a pattern of control and manipulation. Still, Jason had fallen in love and wanted to spend his life with her. About 6 months into the relationship, Jason asked Brandy's mother for her daughter's hand. During that conversation, her mother opened up about Brandy's past, sharing that Brandy didn't know her biological father and had grown up with instances of abuse in her childhood. Jason was taken aback. Brandy had never told him these things herself. He had always tried to be transparent about his own past, and it unsettled him that she hadn't done the same. Over time, Jason began to feel like Brandy had two sides, and even now, he's not sure which one was the real her, or if anyone ever truly knew her. At the time, Brandy was working in a department store, while Jason was beginning his career as a software engineer. She believed she was on track for a promotion to manager. But one day, she came home furious, explaining that another employee had been given the position instead. Brandy accused the store manager of having an inappropriate relationship with the woman who got the job. She confronted them publicly, causing a scene, and ultimately lost her job. She broke down in tears, shaking, playing the victim. Jason felt caught off guard by the outburst, but assumed it was an isolated incident. It wasn't. This was the first time he saw how volatile Brandy could be when things didn't go her way. She seemed to carry a sense of anger, not just at the situation, but at the world itself. Jason, meanwhile, doubled down on his efforts to be a good partner. He worked longer hours, wanting to provide stability. But Brandy's behavior grew more intense. One evening, when he came home late from work, she greeted him with an accusation. "What took you so long? Who were you with?" She needed to know where he was at all times. She insisted he block all his exes on social media, and stood behind him to make sure he did. Eventually, she demanded that they use an app so she could track his location at all times. Jason didn't argue. He felt sorry for her, interpreting her control not as malice, but as deep insecurity. Before the wedding, Jason had asked Brandy if they could wait a couple of years before having children. He was focused on building his career and wanted to give their future family the best start. Just a week later, Brandy took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. Jason was surprised but overjoyed. He believed she was still on birth control and took the pregnancy as a 1 in a million chance, something meant to be. But Brandy later framed the situation as Jason's fault. She hadn't been taking birth control, and instead of owning it, she manipulated his guilt. She told him, "If you're going to leave me, do it now. I won't accept it after the baby is born." Her behavior became even more controlling. On their wedding day, she was irritable, angry, and snapped at those around her. When Tyler was born, Jason stayed close, taking photos of their son and placing them around Brandy's hospital room. But Brandy refused to go and see her baby. When Jason wasn't around, she asked her mother to remove the photos. She didn't want to look at them. It wasn't until the day she was discharged that she finally saw Tyler for the first time. Later, she explained that she had a specific vision of how her pregnancy should unfold, and when things didn't go as she imagined, she became deeply upset and withdrawn. At first, Brandy struggled to accept that Tyler had been born prematurely. She seemed to resent him for being so small, as if the situation was somehow his fault. Eventually, though, she began taking care of Tyler, and for a while things seemed normal. It was a good time. But then came the threats. Brandy once told Jason, "If you leave, you'll never see Tyler again." Her tone was serious, even cold. That moment stayed with Jason. He held Tyler in his arms and wept. It wouldn't be the last time she used that threat. Anytime an argument escalated, she'd go straight to what mattered most to Jason, saying that if he didn't comply, he'd never see his son again. For Jason, this was emotionally devastating, and it became a recurring pattern in their relationship. Jason often felt like people, even their own children, were tools for Brandy to control situations. Brandy would sometimes dismiss his needs or concerns. On one Father's Day, she prepared gifts for her own father and grandfather, but did nothing for Jason. When he brought it up, she became angry and turned the blame onto him, making herself the victim and telling him to leave if he felt so unappreciated. Then, in a disturbing twist, she told Tyler they had to eat less because Daddy needs a gift. Over time, Brandy began isolating Jason from everyone he cared about. He said she discouraged him from seeing friends and lied to his parents, saying he had to work on weekends just to avoid family visits. When he wanted to socialize with coworkers after work, she'd guilt trip him, saying things like, "Well, if your family doesn't matter to you, go ahead." Jason said he didn't realize just how much control she had taken, or how far the manipulation had gone. Jason had struggled with mental health since high school, and had been on medication after he attempted to take his own life. Brandy pressured him to stop taking it, arguing that the $30 monthly cost of the medication was hurting them financially. Jason began to feel more and more lost. Looking back, he said he wasn't sure he ever really knew who Brandy was. Jason began to notice changes in Brandy's behavior. She had added a password to her phone and was constantly glued to it, smiling, texting, lost in her own world. His suspicions grew. One day when Brandy stepped into the shower, he managed to grab her phone before the screen locked. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. She had been texting their neighbor, and the messages were explicit. In one, she invited him to lick the frosting off her. Wanting to know the full extent of what was going on, Jason secretly installed software that allowed him to monitor Brandy's messages. Soon after, the neighbor's girlfriend invited Brandy to the movies. While they were out, the neighbor brought his and Brandy's kids over to Jason's house for a playdate. All the while, Jason continued watching the text exchanges. Brandy and the neighbor were still messaging each other even while he sat right in front of Jason, and the content was sexual. Jason struggled to stay composed. It took everything he had not to break down right then and there. Then came the exchange that hit Jason the hardest. They told each other they loved one another. The neighbor texted, "You're my girl now." And she replied, "Always have been." He answered, "And always will be." Later that day, when Brandy returned with the neighbor's girlfriend, he asked the kids to stay in his son's room. Jason confronted them directly. He asked, "So you two love each other?" Brandy immediately denied everything. He pressed further, "So you're not texting each other?" Again, she said no. That's when he showed her the messages. The neighbor's girlfriend began smacking him. Cornered, Brandy deflected by accusing Jason of cheating, despite being the one who had been unfaithful. Jason told her he was taking the children and leaving that very night. But Brandy responded with a chilling threat. She said she would tell the authorities that he had attempted to take his life in high school, and that she would claim he was a danger to himself and their children. With her paralegal background, she knew exactly how to frame the situation to make the system work in her favor. In that moment, Jason realized she had all the power. She had won. She also said it was his fault because he was too busy working, and she needed someone to talk to. They had agreed to take a temporary break to figure things out. Jason was going to stay in the house, and Brandy was supposed to move to her mother's house with the kids. While Jason was at work, Brandy texted him saying she had explained the situation to the children. When he got home, he found the kids in tears. Brandy had told them that she had to move out because Dad was mad at her. Tyler connected the dots. If Mom had to leave because Dad was mad at her and he had to go too, then Dad must be mad at him as well. Charlie was also crying, not because she fully understood, but because her brother was crying. That's when it hit Jason. If he went through with the separation, Brandy was going to put their children through hell to punish him. So he pushed down everything he was feeling and begged her to stay. She agreed, on one condition, that he apologized to their neighbor, since their sons were friends and they'd still be seeing each other. Jason hated it, but he did it anyway. They continued to see them at birthdays and holiday gatherings. For the sake of his children, Jason made sure to stay civil every time. They continued living under the same roof, but stayed in separate rooms. Jason still hoped Brandy might change, that somewhere down the line, she'd become a better person. But with time, he realized that wasn't going to happen. About a year after Jason discovered Brandy's relationship with their neighbor, around Father's Day, she sent him photos again. She claimed it was an accident and that the pictures were actually meant for Jason, but he didn't buy it. The situation kept playing in his mind, and he began to question whether he had made the right choice. That's when an idea came to him. He posted on Reddit. He laid out everything that had happened and asked for advice. Some people suggested counseling, but Brandy refused to go. Most told him the same thing, to get a divorce. They were no longer partners, just two people coexisting in silence. Brandy showed no willingness to change, and eventually, Jason came to a difficult conclusion. It would be better for the children to have two happy, separated parents than two miserable ones staying together. When Jason told Brandy he wanted a divorce, she was defensive. She accused him of having an affair and asked whether he no longer found her attractive. But Jason was clear. He was done. Brandy was taken aback. She admitted it was because of her own actions, acknowledged the affair, and even apologized. But what struck Jason most was how calm she was. Disturbingly calm, especially for someone usually so reactive. The very next day, on November 16th, Jason filed the official divorce papers. That day, things were unusually normal. They had dinner as a family and played with the kids. But beneath the calm surface, something had already shifted. Rather than responding directly to Jason's divorce and custody filing, Brandy devised a plan. She bought a weapon in advance, hid it, and waited. This deliberate calculation reflects premeditation, masked behind emotional passivity, a trait consistent with deep-seated resentment and repressed aggression. Jason stayed in the marriage longer than he wanted to because he didn't want to lose his children. But in the end, he lost them anyway. Jason realized that leaving an abuser is often the most dangerous moment because that's when they're losing control, and their reaction can be unpredictable. Brandy's actions reflected traits often associated with covert narcissism and extreme control-driven behavior. Her act itself was selfish, and what she said to Jason moments after the murders made that terrifyingly clear. "Now you can't take my kids from me." This chilling statement reveals her core motive, not loss of love, but loss of ownership. She perceived her children not as independent beings, but as extensions of herself, something she refused to give up. Brandy Worley pleaded not guilty and was expected to pursue an insanity defense. Her legal team explained that Brandy was having a hard time dealing with the looming divorce and the fear of becoming a single mother. She had a history of depression and anxiety, for which she had been prescribed medication. Over time, her mental health deteriorated further. Brandy's attorney said that in those few hours in November, Brandy Worley snapped. The prosecution argued that she committed the killings with calculating and premeditated intent. Brandy was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation ahead of a competency hearing. However, before that hearing took place, she changed course and pleaded guilty to the murders of Tyler and Charlie. Jason sat in the courtroom as Brandy entered her guilty plea. He said, "She appeared to be just as unremorseful as she did in the 911 call. She spoke in a very matter-of-fact manner when describing her crime. It was heart-wrenching to hear her speak as she did." At the sentencing, Brandy chose not to speak. She never expressed regret about killing her children. In 2018, more than a year after the murders, she was sentenced to 120 years. 55 years for her son's murder, and 65 years for killing her little daughter, with the two sentences to run consecutively. Jason said he doesn't care about her sentence. He said, "All I want, and have ever wanted, was to have her out of sight and mind, so that I may move forward from this horror." Brandy Worley spent the first few months at the Indiana Department of Corrections before being transferred to the Indiana Women's Prison in 2019. Jason's mother-in-law had created a GoFundMe page using his last name and photos of Tyler and Charlie. The fundraiser was intended to help cover Brandy's legal and medical expenses. Jason admitted that coping in the aftermath was incredibly difficult. At one point, he even struggled with thoughts of taking his life, overwhelmed by grief. He developed insomnia, afraid of what he might dream, or what he might wake up to. For a while, he relied on alcohol just to fall asleep, but thankfully, his family stepped in before it became a lasting issue. Jason said he eventually sought professional help and urged others to do the same. He emphasized that there's no shame in struggling with your mental health, but ignoring it only makes things worse. He said, "Your life is too important to throw away in a moment of weakness." By delaying treatment, he lost his job and withdrew from the world, but slowly, he rebuilt. He returned to work. However, problems with his former in-laws didn't end there. Not long after the tragedy, they changed the locks on the house he had been renting from them, while his belongings were still inside. Negotiations failed, and law enforcement had to step in. In another incident, he was accused of stealing property he had already bought from a family member before the death of the children, and was told he needed to pay twice the original amount or face consequences. Jason reported it to the authorities, and the matter was resolved. Even visiting his children's graves was painful. On the one-year anniversary, members of Brandy's family parked nearby and watched him the entire time from their truck. He said that if there's anything he learned from this, it's that you should always take the time to be with the ones you love. It doesn't matter if they are asking you to read The Pokey Little Puppy for the millionth time, or asking you to play Smash Bros, even though you both know they will wipe the floor with you every time. Just do it because you never know what time will be the last time. Always make sure they know how much you love them. Jason believes Brandy killed the children because she wanted to destroy him. She wanted to drive him to relapse, to take his own life, to make his life as hard as possible, but she failed. Jason says, "I do struggle, but I am determined that if my children are looking down at me from somewhere, that they see a man that they can be proud of." To Jason, they are always with him wherever he goes, as long as he keeps remembering them and saying their names. This way, he keeps some small part of them alive. Did Brandy Worley get the sentence she deserved? And should she be eligible for early release based on good behavior? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up, tap thanks to support my work, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chilling case. Stay safe. Until next time.